Oh, okay.
Good morning. Good morning. My name's Chris Caius. It's 10 o'clock in the morning. And I am calling this, I'm chairman of the administration committee. I'm calling this meeting to order on Wednesday, Wednesday, August 9th, 2023. Yesterday was a tough day. We'll just say it's at 10 o'clock. We have roll call, please.
Berman,
Here.
Davis,
Bringing in
Ford, Gums,
Gums here.
Young,
Good morning.
Subi,
Should be here.
Caius,
Guys present.
Kirag. You have a quorum?
Quorum, I have that Mr. Young is going to be joining us remote. So if he pops on, is there any objection to having him on?
No.
Having no objection, then we'll count him as a voting member. Okay, great. Can I have someone ask for
Unanimous consent to approve the minutes from July 12th, 2023.
Gums? Thank you. Is there any objection? Hearing none, we'll make it so. Our financial, I don't think there's anybody here for finance. Financial reports are on file. They are attached. If you have questions, see them. Is there anyone here online or in writing for public comment? Seeing none. Move along. And then I have item 7, facilities master plan update by Jason Dwyer this morning. There's Mr. Fonstock. Is Jason here today?
Jason is not here today, but he's going to be here this afternoon for our 3
Files.
o'clock planning workshop at Eagle Brook. The update on the master plan is that today we're going to be giving a presentation. Kathy Hopkinson, Executive Director of Finance, and Dan Forbes, our bond counsel with Spear Financial. They're going to be giving a high-level presentation on how to fund major capital projects. And then we're going to be talking about locations for the government center and the different scenarios and go through an evaluation process and some group exercises. So that's today at 3 o'clock, and that's the update
And it's where again?
at Eagle Brook.
Eagle Brook. Okay,
Thank
so
you.
we're informed. Thank you. And thank you for all you're doing to organize that.
Thanks.
I see Mr. Ford's here too, so count him as present. Great, thank you. Then Executive Director's Report, Mr. Roger Fonstock, our Executive Director, IT and Building Management.
Morning, this is Roger. I'm going to reserve our time for the presentation for the Judicial Center chiller replacement, which is item B and C under 9 building management. So we'll be bringing back the 3rd quarterly report for the IT and building management at next month's meeting though.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any questions right now for Mr. Fonstock? Thank you. Then under Building Management, Henry Thompson, may I have a motion and second authorizing contract for Kane County Concrete Services, moved by Berman, second by
Ford.
Good morning, Henry Thompson.
Mr. Thompson. Yes.
Yes. This resolution is authorizing agreement with M&M Concrete that went out to bid with purchasing. It is a budget item and we're looking for $200,000 and we're requesting your approval.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Thompson? Hearing none, seeing none, roll call, please.
Berman,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Young,
Young, yes.
Juby,
Should be I.
Caius.
Caius, yes. Motion passes. Then on to the much anticipated item number 9 from presentation of the Judicial Center chiller replacement by Effie Moran. And you're going to do that,
So.
Mr. Fonstock?
did you- yeah. Yes, I wanted to introduce from Effie Moran. We have a couple of gentlemen here to present, and this is related to the Judicial Center chillers. So what we've been working through a process of looking at and investigating the life and expectancy and kind of the issues that are involved with the chillers in the Judicial Center for the past 2 months. And we've come to kind of the end of that process of evaluating chillers that were installed, I believe sometime around 1992. So they're roughly 30 years old, 31 years old. They've had different challenges with maintenance over the years. And I think at this point, what we're recommending is that instead of investing a significant amount of money in rebuilding 30-year-old chillers, we're going to be recommending that we replace them. And we're going to recommend replacing them with a little bit different technology, a lot better efficiency, and a lot better serviceability. But this is something that's been reviewed for the past few months. So we have with us Kevin Denzel, Dan Petro, and Drew Petro from FE Moran. I'm going to turn it over to them and Henry Thompson if he wants to contribute as well. But they can explain the process that they've been going through to make this recommendation for us. So we'll get that presentation queued up and let them proceed.
Great. Yeah.
Morning, everybody. Thank you for inviting us to,
Go ahead and put the microphone as close as you can to your mouth there and
sure. Thank you very much for inviting us
Better.
to explain what we've been working on with some of your management team. We've done an extensive deep dive into the equipment that you presently have. We've documented some of the condition in our presentation. We've also put together some solutions for you guys as to options moving forward with rebuilding the plant that you have existing and upgrading the plant that is in the process of being laid out, designed, which this presentation will encompass all of that. So moving forward, I'd like to thank you for inviting us to present.
and your name was?
I'm Dan Petro. I'm the service manager for FE Moran Mechanical. We've got Drew Petro here, who is the account manager for King County Judicial, and my counterpart, Kevin Denzel, who's the vice president of MMS Service. Introductions. One of the things that we're looking at here is presenting the new chiller plant. And that chiller plant is an air-cooled chiller plant. Retrofitting what you have existing, which is a centrifugal style chiller plant. And we'd like to talk a little bit about the advantages of converting. One of the advantages is with an air-cooled chiller being able to sequence. So instead of having just one single compressor, you have multiple compressors. There's 4 compressors in an air-cooled chiller. Lowering the power factor improves power usage. The ILPV rating on a centrifugal is much lower, but if you look at in Chicago, the part load ratings, we typically don't see conditions of 85 or greater more than 17 days a year. With that being said, an air-cooled chiller actually has a much better energy efficiency rating than a centrifugal chiller does because it's always running in part load conditions. So there's a little bit of deception there in looking at a centrifugal versus an air-cooled. And I think in your conditions, in your situation, an air-cooled chiller plant actually is a much more efficient plant and suits your building much better. Some of the issues that you presently have that we are combating is lower maintenance costs. There's a lower installation cost in putting in an air-cooled chiller plant. It eliminates the need for a cooling tower, the required usage of chemicals, so it does not impact the environment, and you have zero water usage. So there's a lot of advantages to the air cooled. Some of the other advantages are if you look at a centrifugal style chiller versus a screw compressor style chiller, is the number of moving parts within those compressors. So with the current technology that you have with a centrifugal style chiller, there's over 100 moving parts inside of those compressors. In a screw style application, you have 4 moving parts. So there's much less maintenance, which it impacts the operating costs. This is a slide was to give an example. This is actually a 400-ton air-cooled chiller that we set earlier this year for another municipality. Gives you just kind of an idea of how big one of these machines is. This would be a mirror image of what we're presenting and designing for the courthouse building. This is 2 400-ton air-cooled chillers sitting on a pad that's taking care of a building that's similar size to what the county has here that they're presenting the 2 new chillers for. The existing cooling tower that you have, one of the issues also underlying is the underground piping that runs from the cooling towers to your current chiller plant is compromised. It runs underground. We have determined early this spring that it is leaking. The water usage is higher than normal. Matt has tracked that, and we've determined that that piping will need to be replaced as part of the project if the direction is rebuilding the existing chillers that are there. So there's also some things to consider when making a decision on installing a new plant versus repairing the plant that's in place. And that will impact the cost tremendously because all of this piping is underground and it actually runs underneath the foundation of the building. So it is almost impossible to access. It will require rerouting the piping externally to the building, coring the foundation and rerouting that piping into the plant. So there are some challenges.
And that's to repairing.
That would be to repair the existing plant using what you currently have and making the repairs.
But
You-
if it,
Madam Chair, do you have a question?
yes, please, if it's replaced, then we won't have to do that. Is that correct?
That is correct. This cooling tower and the piping at that point will no longer be needed, so that will not be a factor in installing the new chiller plant. This is basically a little bit of technical, but to simplify it, basically what's being proposed is what's called a primary secondary system. So the remaining infrastructure of the building will stay. The pumping, the piping, everything in the building will be as is. We would upgrade and install new pumps, but all the piping, air handlers, basically infrastructure would stay the same. And it's called a primary secondary system where basically you would be adding the new chillers and adding 3 new pumps, which would basically just pump into the old system. The old system pumps would be maintained and there would be a pipe that connects between the old and new system to transfer the chilled water into the building. It's a very simple system and it's efficient. Picture of your existing chiller plant. Not sure if everybody's familiar, but I incorporated some slides just to give you a little bit of knowledge of what's there and where the current state is. We've disassembled one of the chillers, which is here in the picture. We found multiple chiller leaks. We found moisture inside, which caused rust. There's an excess amount of surging, which does physical damage, refrigerant loss, bearing damage, impeller wear. These are all critical items. Just a quick overview of what we were talking about with the number of moving parts. This is an internal breakdown of a centrifugal compressor. And as you can see, there's multiple bearings, multiple gear sets, the impeller that actually pumps the refrigerant. There's a set of control devices called vanes that regulate the amount of refrigerant coming through the compressor. Lots of moving parts, very complicated, not a simplistic design, which leads to the added maintenance, more wear and tear. And eventually, as they get older, there's more risk of failure. Again, an impeller design, basically, you can see I've illustrated here, one of the arrows on your bottom right-hand side is called the gas seal surface. This is where we saw significant damage due to the wear on this style compressor. As we move further in the slide, it'll become clearer, and I'll explain to you why I illustrated this picture here and showed you the surface that has been compromised in this compressor. This is an actual picture of the impeller and the sealing surface that has been compromised. A few pictures here just to illustrate the internal condition of the compressor. So this is your internal of the compressor that is there existing right now. You can see the rust. You can see a water line at the bottom, the dark spot versus the light spot in the top. This is all due to moisture. This is a picture of a rebuilt compressor, one that we did in the future, and you can see surfaces are clean, oiled, bearing surfaces are clean. These are the bearings that came out of your compressor that's internally there right now. It's hard to see, but some of the wear surfaces on these sleeve bearings are compromised.
Is there, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Was there a percentage, like on a brake pad, they'll say you've got 20% or something like that. Is there a numerical value for the amount of wear is on one of those bearing surfaces?
There is. So the factory has documented clearances, and some of those clearances can be anywhere from 10 to 15 thousandths, which would be about the thickness of a matchbook cover. We are so far outside of that. It's some of them aren't even able to be measured. They've got deep grooves cut into the surfaces from the rust cutting into the bearing surfaces, and it's also damaged the mating surfaces. So there's significant damage to this particular unit. And we've had discussions with your group of engineers, and we don't think we'd find much different in the second machine that's there. It's experiencing some of the same problems that the machine we tore apart was having. So we're anticipating, if that machine were to be inspected, the same caliber of damage.
And from measuring it with a micrometer to measuring with a tape measure, then
Pretty close. Yes. One of the other things to keep in mind is this is a big part of the decision in choosing an air-cooled versus centrifugal. The heat transfer process in the existing style machines is done through copper tubes. And over time, those copper tubes become compromised when you get water in the machine. That water becomes acidic. and that acid begins to deteriorate the tubes. There are signs of deterioration in these tubes. An eddy current was performed and there is IDOD metal loss, internal, external metal loss. So we know that they've been compromised. It's hard to project the lifespan. It could last another year, could last another 5 years, but we do know that there's extensive wear on these tubes, and that's a big part of considering replacing them. It's another added cost that you would incur with having to replace those tubes in order to rebuild what you have. One of the things that we've looked at is, just to end on the presentation, we've done some research and we've looked at and we've taken the manufacturer's specifications on the machines and we've pulled data, and it's becoming now a more acceptable, I'm going to say, process of looking at air-cooled machines. So for a long time, and again, my background is I worked for the manufacturer for York for 30 years. I was a factory startup and warranty technician. I actually started your chillers up when they were brand new. So full circle for me. But the air-cooled machines have not been looked at properly in the past. Engineers looked at what is the energy consumption at full load. And in our area in the Midwest, we do not run at full load. We run in the 50 to 75% range most of the time. It's only 17 days out of the year that we experience those extreme 85 plus temperatures, which it doesn't really paint a proper perspective as to the efficiencies of an air-cooled versus the centrifugal style chiller. It's when you look at the part load conditions, which is where you're running most of the time, I would say 75–80% of the time, that it's really clear as to the energy consumption of the machines. I've provided that data. You guys have all of the cut sheets for a centrifugal versus an air-cooled. And there's a really nice comparison that shows part load. It's called an ILPV rating, which is an energy consumption rating. And that rating is about 2/3 greater than a centrifugal style chiller. So one of the factors to consider when you're considering looking at a air-cooled versus a centrifugal. So the big things are install costs, energy rating, and the maintenance costs. And I think it would serve you guys well to have an air-cooled plant. Your energy costs are lowered, your maintenance costs are lowered, and you've got the longevity with the screw compressor. On average, it's a 30,000 hour device. That compressor does not require service for 30,000 hours, whereas a centrifugal has a 10,000 hour internal service. So after 10,000 hours, those compressors need to be opened up and inspected to make sure that there's no wear and tear to avoid catastrophic failures. On a screw compressor, it's 3 times that. It's 30,000 hours. So I think that that's something to consider when you guys are looking at the different plants. Thank you very much for your time today.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. So, is there any questions?
I do.
I'm
I'm
gonna
sorry.
start with somebody on, or
Oh, go ahead.
did you have extra
just-
comments first?
Mr. Petro, do you have an idea of like percent of the energy savings that we'd have per year on going from a centrifugal to a air-cooled unit?
So we're looking at centrifugal versus air-cooled. It's a 2/3 savings. So in a part load, if you look at the ILPV rating that's in the cut sheets, in a part load, because there's 4 compressors versus 1 compressor in a 400-ton machine, you're always committed to running at that 40% or 40-ton load rating. With 4 compressors, being able to turn 3 of them off and run 1 at a 10%, you run at 10 tons minimum. So in low load conditions, like see in the spring and the fall, that's when your big savings come in. So anytime you can reduce your energy consumption by 10% is your biggest savings. The other factor is the new style air-cooled screw machines also have variable frequency drives on them,
Mhm.
which is anytime you can lower the speed of a compressor by 10% is the largest savings, and that's about 40%. So there's a lot of benefits to the air-cooled versus the water-cooled.
Matt Walker, Dan, can you let them know too how you can run off outside air with an air-cooled chiller?
So there's some options also for free cooling where you can strictly run pumps. So you're not running the mechanical cooling portion of the unit. You're basically running the pumps and you're taking advantage of using the condenser fans on the unit, which gives you free cooling, which reduces your energy consumption greatly just by being able to move that water across a coil and disperse the heat out of that water by passing air across it. So there's an even greater savings in that spring and fall, what we call our shoulder seasons, by having an air cooled.
Seems like it's hotter than that all the time around here. Maybe it's just, that's the real field temperature, right? That's right. So on committee members, we'll start with those comments and I've got you on hold there. Okay, for just a moment. Madam Gums?
Thank you, Gums here. Just a quick question. I like to think I can fix everything, but the less parts that there are that's great. But I did have questions. 30 years is a long time for anything to work.
Sure.
So good on that. How often? So for me, I have my boiler checked every single year and
Yes.
cleaned every single year. What are we looking at? I know you described that we'd have to have these evaluated every 30,000 hours, but as an annual thing, is it pretty simple to do something like that? And the reason I ask is because we need to make sure that we are actually servicing our big important things so we don't have issues like we've had in the past.
Correct. And that's what led to some of the issues that you're currently experiencing today is the lack thereof. So it's no different than servicing your car. And the biggest thing is, we've talked about this, I presented, and I can also send you guys some more information. These compressors, they say that they need to be serviced at 30,000 hours. They've documented there's compressors out there that have run for 100,000 hours with zero maintenance, other than making the biggest thing to the longevity is oil changes, just like your car. As long as you're doing regular maintenance and doing the oil changes, any of those, and what they don't tell you is it's dirt, it's debris from the wear and tear. As long as you are getting that debris out of the system and you're filtering the oil and doing oil changes just like you would your car, they've documented these machines will run for 100,000 hours without having any internal failures. I've got all the manufacturer's information. I can send that over to you guys so that you can see some of the documentation on it. It's amazing.
That's a checkup every 3.42465 years, like 30,000 hours, right? You do the math.
Right.
0.39.
Every 10,000.
Gums, I just thought it was a really good thing to bring up
0.39
because
is what
we've
I
had
got.
that issue before. So
Yeah.
going forward, anything that we do, we need to make sure that we're maintaining it.
Maintenance is always critical. If you take care of your machines and you do the proper maintenance, they will last.
Dan, you want to mention going to the air-cooled
Matt.
chillers? What,
Go ahead.
sorry, guys. Do you want to mention what comes with it as far as a warranty and a plan? with purchasing the new
Sure.
air-cooled chillers?
So there's stages of warranty that can be provided, and it's through the manufacturer. So you can purchase 5-year, 10-year extended warranty plans that will cover all of those. Any mechanical failure, compressor failure, coil failures, any of those major components are covered. So there's lots of options to consider.
Great, thanks, Matt.
Mr.
Then,
Chairman.
did you have a comment, Roger?
I just wanted to kind of summarize a few things when you get.
Okay, a couple more
Thanks, Bob.
questions then. Anybody else on the committee first? Then we'll go to you then,
Thanks.
Deborah Allen.
This is Alan. I just wanted to ask about the 17 days in the 80s.
Yes.
It just seems like we may be having more than that. So is the system able to bump up to
Yes.
cover that?
Absolutely.
Okay, so there won't be a million calls from the building saying we're dying out here. Okay.
So if you look at the trend data from the Weather Service, our weather here in the Midwest, we only have those extreme conditions. And on the average, it's 17 days a year that our temperatures are consistently 85 plus. Most of the time, our temperatures are 85 or below here. So when they consider looking at centrifugal style chillers and they look at full ILPV ratings, it's a misnomer. It is not a true calculation. If you look at those chillers across the whole entire band from their low load to their full load, they are not the most efficient machine on the market. But manufacturers they like to sell their Cadillacs. So this is always a point of contention. And now the engineers are actually looking at all of the criteria, the part load versus full load, and giving the actual true information, which it's a shrinking market. The centrifugal market was the largest market for HVAC. It is not any longer. We install about $400 million of equipment a year. And out of that, I would say at best, probably 70 million of it is centrifugals. The rest of it is air cooled.
Good. All right. And then Mr. Ford, did you have a comment?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is about testing our the airflow balance, the
Mhm.
intake versus outtake. How have you had a chance to do that, or after you put in a new unit, you would take a look at that?
So these are chilled water units. So they actually supply 40-degree water to the building. That water is passed through a coil, and the actual blower units inside of the building are what blow air across that cold coil, remove the heat from it, and then pass that conditioned air back into the building. So
How it works.
to answer your question, it's kind of outside of what we're speaking of here today, replacing the chiller plant. But it is a concern. It is something to consider. Are you running efficiently and getting full capacity out of your building? Are you moving the proper airflows? And that's something that our company can do. There's third-party companies that can come in and also perform some of these. And it is really a recommissioning project is what we call them, where you come in and you check what was the original design and what are we now providing? Are we still efficient in providing the airflows needed for the building? So yes, it is, it ties in with the energy efficiency ratings to get the full potential out of the entire system, not just the chiller plant.
Okay, thank you.
And just a comment that I don't know how many walls have been added. Here's a problem with when you build a new building, people get upset about the efficiency changes. But we start to reconstruct the building, And what was there was based on what was built and designed in the beginning. So when you reconstruct the building, even to put up a few walls, it can change, make a lot of great changes. So I just think that's a test that we need to do in the near future when we get these in.
And I had Mr. Roth over here, and then back to you, coming.
Okay, I had a few questions. What's the expected life of the current unit we have? I know we're at 30, but what is the expected? And also what's the expected life of the new?
Sure. So a lot of factors play a part as far as maintenance. It's unfortunate, the machines that you actually have. I have machines out there that are 60, 70 years old. A centrifugal style chiller is designed to last 40 years plus. A lot of that is determined on maintenance. An air-cooled machine has a 30-year lifespan. So when you consider or you speak of centrifugal versus air-cooled, you look at a couple things. So this is also something that we've discussed. If you look at the full package, centrifugal versus air-cooled, installation costs, maintenance costs, a centrifugal is substantially more to purchase. The maintenance costs are much higher and they cost more to run. If you look at an air-cooled package, the upfront install cost is much less. The maintenance costs on a screw style is much less. Even though it doesn't have the lifespan, the energy efficiency costs or the energy costs are much lower. So it's a much more attractive package as a whole, air-cooled versus centrifugal. So you may not get the 40 years that you're looking at, but if you break down the cost per year, an air-cool is still more attractive.
Okay, the next question. We're looking at adding to the building.
Yes.
Will these new units cover that, or would we have to add additional at some point?
So in the chiller plant design that we're proposing, there are what's called futures.
Okay.
It will have the capability of expanding that plant to accommodate for the new building that you guys are proposing.
Now, what's the max? Because I know we're looking at different buildings. I mean, is it 100% growth possibility or 20?
So right now you are N+1 is what they call it. So you are capable of cooling the building with one machine. Your other machine is your backup. It's redundant. So you are a 1-to-1 ratio. I don't know how big your future plan is for your building, but it would be something that we would have our engineering team look at once you determine footprint of your building and the size of your building. We could engineer all of that, whether it be adding one more chiller, two more chillers. This plant will have the capabilities of providing what you need for your next building.
The next question, where would they be installed? Where the current compressors are, or up on the roof, or somewhere else?
So that's one of the things that we've discussed. The new chiller plant will actually be disassembled and removed, which will free up some space in the building. My understanding is you guys are also entertaining putting in a boiler plant. So it will make room for your new boiler plant that's in the building. These machines will actually will be outside the building. It's not cost effective to install them on the roof based on the piping that would have to run through the building. So we would pour a new pad that is outside of the loading dock and configure a new chiller plant right there, pouring new concrete, setting pumps, all the piping, the chillers will sit right outside of that loading dock.
And then one more question.
Yes.
Heaven forbid, it breaks. What's the repair time on the average? Because like example, when it broke in the jail, that's kind of critical that we get it repaired right away.
Yes.
Because there's less parts. I would assume it's quicker.
Quicker. And also remember, so on the current style or centrifugal style, you have one compressor. If it breaks,
Right.
you have zero cooling.
Right.
On an air cooled, you have 4 compressors. If you lose one, you still have 3 running. So you can make those repairs to that style chiller while you're still running the other three that are on that skid.
Okay.
So there's a lot of advantages there.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Welcome. Okay, and Matt, did you have some comment that you wanted to?
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to his question about air balancing. I'm not sure if you guys know this, but I have a 35-year background in commercial HVAC mechanical. One of my jobs was balancing bill leaks, so I'm highly aware of the issues in the building. But when we do new build outs through White, what we do issue is a balance report. So we make them come in and do a balance on the systems that they're adding to our buildings. But it is a concern of mine. It's a process that we're going to go through. We have to start with the new chillers, and then we want to walk through the building and try to straighten out the entire building. So it'd be a plan to go about that, but that is on our radar, and I'm fully aware of it.
Thank you. And then I hear
Yeah.
Madam Gums.
Yeah, the YouTube queen on fixing stuff. What's the noise factor on something that's outside? Is there any noise to this?
There is.
And also, the new location that it will be in, any exhaust, anything like that, that's maybe going to be sucked into the building. I have a little experience with that at a
Sure. So it will not impact your air intake for the building. Noise is always a consideration. So there's options. They make low noise fan shrouds for the top. There's sound attenuating blankets that go on the compressors, but probably the biggest thing that we took into consideration with looking at this application is pouring a concrete parapet wall so that that noise doesn't bounce off of the building. It bounces off of that concrete parapet wall and it pushes it out towards the parking lot. So it will not impact the building.
And that's my concern, is you don't want to hear that if you're in
Correct.
courts or wherever.
Yes, that is
What you're saying is we're gonna nail the sheriff's department with with the bounce
And
back noise.
unpack those.
Yeah, I'm joking.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Solar field.
yeah, there's ways to
Yeah.
there's ways to deal with the noise. There's decibel. If you look at the submittals that was provided, there's a decibel reading for the machines in the manufacturer specifications, and all that's taken into consideration when especially putting machines like this so close to the building. And your building is a few stories tall, that noise goes up and out. So it's being able to control it and divert it.
Juby has a question.
Yeah, Leslie Juby. So Michelle was just asking about the sound impact on the building. What about the sound impact on the neighbors? Because if we're spreading it and we're going to push it right across the street to all those people that have those really expensive homes, might not like us very much. So what do we do about that?
That sound won't reach that far.
It won't go that
It
far?
will not.
Okay, so if they call us, we'll just have them give your number.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So we've dealt with this. We've got air cooled chillers in retirement homes. They use them in hospitals. They use them in industrial applications. There's a wide variety of applications, and there's ways to work around the sound issues. Again, hospitals are usually and data centers are usually very particular about how they disperse sound, because a lot of these data centers now are in residential areas, and it's difficult because the impact on the patrons around them is very important. They have ways of deadening the sound for these machines. So yes, rest assured, it's something that's always taken into consideration.
Okay, great. One more from Henry, then.
Mr. Petro, I just kind of want to remind her, if you can maybe do a comparison between the decibel levels between the tower that we currently have outside, because I
Yes.
just want to remind everyone, we do have equipment that's already outside in place that's air cooled. So if you can kind of maybe
Sure.
do a comparison, that maybe put some people
Absolutely.
at ease a little bit.
So you have two cooling towers that have two large fans on the cooling towers that are existing in your current chiller plant. Those two towers that are there produce about 2/3 of the noise of what two air-cooled chillers would produce. So you're really looking about increasing the sound levels in decibels by about 1/3, which if you've deadened that sound with the sound blankets that they provide on those compressors and you put the low noise fans in them, I think you'll currently be about where you're at right now. I would have to compare the decibel levels, but I know it's about 65 dB on the new machines in the literature from the manufacturer. I would have to look at what the Marley cooling tower manufacturer has in their specifications, but I can guarantee you it's not more than 1/3.
Okay, well, we've been going a long time here. You want to wrap this up, Roger?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of give some background and a little summary of what we've been trying to accomplish. So this process started about 3 or 4 months ago with investigating the chiller. And in the process, looking at what would it take to repair the current chillers in place. And then identifying obviously the problems with them. Once we took one of them apart, we identified, a variety of mechanical issues, but also large costly repairs that would probably exceed half the price of what we quoted to replace them. Plus, we don't really have a good understanding of the plumbing problems of the chiller tower that goes through the foundation and out to the back. So those were a couple of the considerations in whether or not you repair and rebuild something that's over 30 years old already. And keep in mind, while Henry's team is doing this with FE Marin, we're running on a secondary temporary chiller on a trailer, essentially, out back. So we're not in prime condition as far as the cooling at that particular building. We're in a position where we're tearing it apart, trying to see if it's possible to fix it. We've determined that we don't think it's a good investment to fix the 30-year-old chiller. So therefore, do we replace it with an in-kind similar centrifugal unit, or do we go to an air-cooled system? So in looking at that, we looked at the costs and efficiencies. We've had Jody Wolnick from Energy and Environmental Resources look at it. We've had FE Moran and a couple of other different people look at this as far as the efficiencies go. The efficiency would be greater with the air cooled. We also believe that our maintenance would be better suited for our staff for the air cooled as opposed to the chiller. And then we also still have the components inside the building that we need to walk through, which Matt was discussing. That'll come as we get this major piece of hardware replaced. One other factor that I think is really important is we're also looking at the building automation system, the BAS, or the control systems, trying to get a better control system to help us with the evaluation of the temperatures and the sensors throughout the building. So that's another part of this that's going to happen going forward. But at this time, our real options are to look at either an exact or in-kind replacement of the centrifugal water chillers or the air cooled, and we're recommending the air cooled. So you have a resolution today. I do have the actual cut sheets for both proposals if you wanted to see them. I believe the one is around 1.8 million and the other one is around 2.2 million for the centrifugal chiller versus the air cooled is about 1.8. In looking at the two different proposals, we obviously feel like we have to have some contingency for this because these pieces have not been pulled off the building in 30 years. So we added some contingency to the resolution. So you have in your packet a resolution that would go with the air-cooled chillers at a price not to exceed $2 million, which includes our contingency, and that's an agreement with FE Moran. The last piece would be dealing with the industry and lead times and supply chain on the cooling units and most mechanical systems on the buildings. We've seen everything from 6 months to well over a year for the lead time for units of this size and commercial capacities. So what we're concerned about is that we need to place the order, get the equipment here, and this would be something that we would actually look to try to replace sometime in spring before next summer starts. And that's kind of our goal for the timeline. So I'd just like to have Moran speak to that, the timeline a little bit. And I think that that's kind of where we're at in our recommendation is air-cooled chiller, about $2 million sometime in April, March, April timeframe, hopefully, but certainly before next summer.
So to Roger's point, just going back, he made a good point. You guys have a large 400-ton screw machine on a trailer in your parking lot running, and there's been no noise complaints. That machine probably produces 2/3 of the sound of what two air-cooled would produce. So it's a good gauge on, you know, how that sound impacts the building and the surrounding areas. So I don't see that being an issue. To further expand on what Roger said, lead times are anywhere from 45 to 56 weeks on equipment right now. It is extremely tough to get equipment. We've waited over a year to be able to execute and install some of the jobs that we've done in the past couple years. It's extremely important to know what your lead times are, and they're running right now, I would say between 9 and 12 months. And that's all manufacturers. It's not just one, it's all manufacturers, whether it be heating systems, cooling systems, they're all about the same.
Dan, you want to speak really quick, the difference between a centrifugal chiller, getting that put in versus the air cooled, because there is a big time difference in how they build them.
Absolutely. So
Matt.
one of the big factors to consider is the air cooleds come out on a semi and you can set them with a crane in a day. You set them on a pad and pipe them in and you're off and running. On a centrifugal style, it has to be completely disassembled to get it into the building and then reassembled in the building. That's a major undertaking. So that's something that you have to also consider in your costs when you're looking at a centrifugal style chiller. That machine has to be shipped to the site, broken down, transported into the building, reassembled in the building. On average, one of those machines weighs 10 times of what the vehicles you're driving. It's a task to get them into the space and get them reassembled and get them up and running. So it's something to consider also when you're making your decision, centrifugal versus air cooled. One of the things that we talked about too was doing an air cooled design. You can run what you have existing right now, and we can build your chiller plant in anticipation for the new chillers coming. We can have everything tied into the building. So when those chillers arrive, basically what we're doing is we're setting them on the pads outside, we're connecting the piping and electric, and you're ready to go. So with the installation, looking at a centrifugal, that work can't be done until the machines are actually installed. So the installation process wouldn't start until those machines arrive on site. With the air cooled, your whole entire plant could be built in anticipation of those machines arriving, and you can run what you have right now up until the day that we change over from the old to the new.
And did you have a comment?
And just
Madam
timeline
Gunn?
wise, I was analyzing all of this stuff. So even if we ordered it today, we're not getting it for 9 months.
Correct.
Close.
And then your installation time is what?
So that's the advantage of the air cooled.
Right, you just answered a couple of questions that I had written down, but in real time, like,
So you're probably looking at 4 months of building out a chiller plant with all the piping, installing all new pumps, which is why you could take advantage of these winter months installing your new building pumps, installing the new piping, installing the new pumps for the chillers outside, and being able to run your existing chiller that you have right now up until the day of that turnover. So just say we get chillers, new air-cooled chillers delivered in March. We could have that plant completely installed, set the new chillers, connect the chillers up, which you're probably looking at 10 days to put chillers in, connect electric, connect piping, and get them up and running. Having that chiller plant piping and pumps all installed prior to, you're looking at really 2 weeks to have a new chiller plant up and running. So very little impact to the building by having all that pre-work done versus a centrifugal where you can't even start that pre-work until the machines arrive, which would put you well into July by the time your new chiller plant was up and running. So it would impact the building.
Okay.
I don't have any more
Is that it?
questions. I think
Thank
that
you, Ms.
wraps
Gumbs.
it up for me.
Madam Chair?
Thank you. I just would like to talk about the budget a little bit. So how much do we have left in the capital budget right now? Because is this budgeted?
This was a budgeted
It was
expense for
budgeted.
this year. Yes,
Very good, very
it's in
good.
capital.
Okay, so we included that in that mass, what was it, several $1,000,000 that we put in there? And that then would be.
I'm sorry,
rolled-
can you speak
Oh,
into your
is
microphone
that-
just a
is that
little,
better?
just seems a little tame there.
Okay, is that, with the budget, so it's included in this year's capital. Is that going to impact anything else, any improvements we need to make on any of the other properties? Or buildings, I should say?
This is Roger from Building Management. I don't believe it'll have any impact on the current fiscal year projects. I will say that for this project, there's the one piece, which is the ordering and the early, engineering and build. There's going to be a rollover where we're going to ask to move the money from 2023 to 2024.
That's what I was
because we
hoping to
won't
hear.
finish, obviously. And then not to scare anyone, but the next building is the jail and sheriff's office. That building was constructed in 2007. It was occupied in 2008. The equipment on that building is somewhere in the 16, 17 years of age, and it's not the same centrifugal chillers. It's more traditional air-cooled equipment, rooftop units. And we're going to be starting the process of looking at all of that equipment as well for replacement. And that'll be something that we look for in our budget for the upcoming process.
year,
Yes,
next year.
it's like high on our list. So
Very good. And I know the sheriff is still behind me, I think, and I think he
I know.
appreciates that.
we're trying to maintain what we have because the judicial center is in even worse condition. But I think that that's probably, priority 1 and 2. And those are 2 of our most significant assets that the county owns. We have, I think the jail was $56 million at construction. It's probably today's value, $80 to $100 million building. It has one of the only buildings where we have 24-hour a day, 7-day a week, people in the building constantly. So the systems and the air in the building is used 24 hours a day, all the time. A lot of the other buildings go into dormancy where we shut them down in the evenings or weekends. That's not the case for the jail at all. So that'll be one of our next projects, is getting the initial phase of investigation work done and looking at where we need to make the replacements. But I can tell you, just because of the age, a lot of the industry, trade magazines and journals are telling you that because of lead times, if you have commercial equipment that's over 15 to 20 years old, that you should be preemptively looking at the replacements, not reactively. And that's something that we're trying to change. Right now, we have to react. We have to get compressors and repair the things that we have, but that's not going to change the prognosis for what we have in the building. It's only going to come through replacing it.
Planning for the future is always best practices.
Yeah.
So, but just to your point, was that what we're doing here and considering today wouldn't impact or slow that down
No.
Correct.
for the sheriffs? Welcome, Sheriff Hain. Would you have a comment?
Thank you, Mr. Kais. Yeah, so I am here today because we have some grave concerns about our HVAC system at the sheriff's office. It's kind of been a domino effect, especially over the last month. This is not the fault of the current building maintenance team. Matt Walker has been fantastic to work with. Our staff really appreciates him trying to pick up the pieces where he can. But we are, Roger made my point that we're the only building in the county, we proved that during COVID, that we have to be there 24/7. We actually last month lost all AC in the front end of our office, which is mandated by law. We have to be open when the courthouse is open. I had to close it because it was 90 degrees up there, and I'm not going to let my staff sit up there in that kind of heat. But they were great in getting the mobile cooling units in for us until it could get repaired over the span of a couple of weeks. And then it kind of dominoed down the building where, our admin area then went out, and then our investigations division went out. And if you go to the back of our office, I'm sure Matt could tell you, it smells like marijuana because we have poor ventilation in our evidence division. So basically what we're hoping is that
What are you growing back there?
I'm gonna need a tour.
on it with mold on it probably, which is not very healthy for everybody. So we've been whistleblowing on this since November of 21. So I guess the crux of my question is, why would we be number 2 to the judicial center, knowing that we have to be open 24/7?
I don't think, at the time when we tore apart the judicial center, we were looking at the age of the systems, and the nature of that age is that the chillers, which we've had other problems with, including the destruction of the boilers last year. We knew that those were problematic for leaking refrigerant, which is not only bad for the boilers, but it can poses some other health issues for the building itself. But that was our primary concern, tearing it apart. Our initial thought was you might be able to rebuild it and get it sealed. And now that you have it open, we know that it's one of those projects where it's going to require a substantial amount of effort to replace it. The systems at the sheriff's office are distributed. There's lots of them, and there's lots of things to break, but they're smaller in terms of like repairing them and getting them operational. You can buy a compressor, you can buy things to fix things. Whereas the chillers, you saw the big heavy iron in the steel in the basement of the building. There's not much you can do to replace it short of rebuilding it. And they're like fabricated parts for these things. There's not a factory punching these things out off of an assembly line. So I think that was kind of our initial, gut instinct, was getting these big chillers replaced would be a difficult task to maintain them while we try to do some other projects. So get these done. We're going to start up the process of doing the initial review and engineering for the jail and sheriff's office. I think that we can wrap that up and have a proposal back here. Hopefully we can get that soon. We're planning on the budget for December. I think the capital budget we're submitting right now will have the resources for it. But the big challenge for that is that the sheriff's, depending on how you do it, between the jail towers and the office, you're probably looking at maybe 3 times the cost. So you might be looking at $6 million worth of heating and air conditioning. So just to kind of set the stage for what that involves, it's a massive building. It has towers. We're talking about the rooftop units on the jail are at, 80, 90 feet off the ground. So we have to crane or helicopter. Well, I'm not sure exactly how they'll deliver them, but we'd have to get those removed and put on. We have occupancy issues while we do it. We have to move people around. So we'll have to work with choreography with the sheriff on how that would work. I think one thing to our advantage right now is you might have a population scenario where you could get everybody in one tower, or one tower and maybe medical somewhere.
Yeah, we're good at that. We can.
But trying to get it to where we can actually take one of the towers down while we, repair and replace. But I don't think this is an extended, protracted project. This is one where we need to actually have the assessment done and get back in front of you and get this obligated or get it ordered soon.
And that's what you're doing.
That's
now,
what
so
we're trying to do next. Yes.
Sound reasonable?
And we haven't even talked about the water lines in the jail yet either.
Oh my
So
God.
That's a whole
that's
different issue.
Another
Yeah.
extreme issue.
You could
But
come
it
to
is
this.
incumbent upon me, and again, the reason why I'm here
Oh,
today, my
absolutely.
biggest fear is the jail going down, because we have to be there.
Right.
So the liability we
Absolutely.
may incur. So as long as it's on the radar, Roger, I really
I
appreciate
believe it
that.
would be our policy to make sure that you do have everything that you need to make sure that that's,
Thank you.
but
Can,
I'm going to go to Madam Chair
I'll,
first. here
I'll
and
be
then-
really quick.
then you.
We have, I believe, and I know Mr. Sanchez is not here. I don't see him online. I believe the potential for some ARPA funding, and very loosely, I believe that that kind of repair, DuPage County has done that kind of repair for, I believe, their jail, the air conditioning and heat, because it's healthy. I mean, air circulation is critical to keep a healthy environment. So if we can get those plans together as quickly as possible. I know they're estimated plans, and of course, money is not released until, as a reimbursement. But we can get that on the docket to see if we can investigate it to see if that money can come through. Because I believe that there's money still available, and that seems like a very prudent way to spend it.
Sure.
So if we could make that recommendation.
I'm going to, did you have a question, Ron?
Oh,
Let's go,
just,
Ron, and then back
thank
to
you,
Dan.
Mr. Chairman. Just real quick, when we get ready to replace and as we put in new pipes and things, just out of curiosity, how do we get rid of that's a lot of steel and metal left over. What do we actually do with it?
Was part of our proposal that we've given to the county. We have taken into consideration removing all of the existing systems. So all of that is in our proposal to remove all of the old equipment to make room for the new equipment. So that's all part of it. Yes. Cooling towers, chillers, piping, all of the existing system would be removed.
I think we just leave it by the road. In my neighborhood, you could just leave metal stuff out there. That metal, they'll take it away. Yeah, right. It's only, how many 100,000 pounds was it?
Yes.
Dan, did you have another comment that was related to one?
Yes. So I think, Sheriff, I think this might be something that you would want to hear. It may be in your best interest. Lead times on those rooftop style pieces of equipment are much, much lower. You're looking at like 12 to 16 weeks to be able to get equipment that fits your building. So you're not looking at the 45 to 54-week lead times, which I think
Thank you, Sheriff Hayne.
it makes making some decisions not as critical, to Roger's point. You've got some time to plan before just being reactive.
Oh,
Roger?
Just quickly, with the issues that we had in the sheriff's office, just to give you kind of perspective, that the time it took us to get the compressors to repair that was a week. And I think we ended up spending about 2 weeks in total time. So compare that to if you lost one of those centrifugal York chillers to rebuild it, you may be waiting months. And that's why we brought in the temporary chiller unit. Similar thing can be done at the jail towers. So just to kind of put everybody at ease, if we had to do it, we would contact basically Train or a cooling provider, have them bring in a temporary unit and hook it into the system, not simply put in chillers and spaces. We would actually make a modification to add a temporary chilling system. But for the office space, it was, I think, a Friday night, and we're trying to figure out how do you get it cooled by Monday. So Matt took the initiative, got chillers brought in. I think we brought 13 1-ton chillers in that afternoon to try to cool it down into the 70s. And there were some challenges. It gets hot in there quick. And then also because it's an open space, the office has, I think they're 10 or 12 foot ceilings and most of the doors are open. So trying to cool it is very challenging as well. But at the same time, it's not the protracted long wait times to get parts for most of those systems. The ones that are a little bit worrisome are the units that are on top of the jail. I think, are those 400-ton units also, Matt?
Matt Walker, those are 65-ton units.
But there's 4 on?
And there's 4 of them on the tower, and we're probably looking at bringing a helicopter in to do the lift to replace those.
So
Fun to watch.
we can make it a event for the
Maybe
neighbors.
sell
or
tickets or
public,
something,
yeah.
that's right.
Kids can get a helicopter ride. No, just kidding. No,
Out or something. We can watch.
I don't know, but anyway, I think that's kind of, a next couple months where we're going to be entertaining that type of an initial proposal. So what we're going to look at, and Effie Moran's here, they're certainly a good candidate for that project as well, but I don't want to confuse anyone. We're going to be asking our vendors to give us kind of a design build for the jail and the sheriff's office. So what would they do to propose the initial design phase all the way through to the end for that type of a project? And then we'll work with one of our contractors to try to deliver that to the board. So
Okay, thank you. So we're working on it as we
that'll be our
helping the
next.
plan, yeah. Okay. About the matter at hand now is a resolution. Can I have a motion and a second authorizing the replacement of the chillers at the Judicial Center? Moved by Ford, second by
Gums.
Gums.
It's Henry Thompson again.
There's
This is,
any more more comment then if there's for that? Yeah, go ahead.
this next resolution is authorizing Effie Moran to complete the chiller work at the JC an amount not to exceed $2 million. It is budgeted and we are recommending your approval today.
Okay. And any questions for Henry or Dan?
Yeah.
Or Roger? No other questions? Quick before we lose our quorum.
Very much.
The
Thank you.
roll call, please.
Berman, Ford,
Ford, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Young,
Young, yes.
Juby,
Juby,
Caius.
Caius, yes. Motion passes. Thank you, Dan, for
Thank you very
that
much.
presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Petro.
Thank you. Thank you.
Effie Moran team, thanks for the presentation.
Thank you for being here. And then on to information technology. We'll have Charles Lasky, and I'll start with the resolution. You're still here, Charles. May I have a motion and second authorizing a budget adjustment for desktop support analysis 2 and system administrator lead for the Information Technologies Department Public Safety Sales Tax.
Gums
Moved
will
by
move.
Gums, second by Berman.
Yeah, this is
Please go-
Charles Lasky with the IT department. We're looking at making a change in the public safety sales tax fund. We want to move some money we have for communication equipment that's used for maintaining our fiber network and fiber equipment and move that into personnel. Right now, we support over 500 virtual servers in the county. The sheriff's office is requiring more frequent updates to their system. And the workload for those servers is split among 3 system administrators. So we want to bring in another one. And this is a way to do that using funds without impacting the general fund. So we'd recommend this change. We can function with the communication equipment change, and we're looking at doing a similar change for the upcoming budget to keep all the funding within what's allowed under that fund, not going over the expected revenue, and make that work. So we'd recommend this change and appreciate your support doing this.
Okay, any questions for Charles? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Young,
Young, yes.
Juby,
Juby,
Caius.
Caius, yes. Motion passes. All right, give me a motion and a second authorizing the expenditure of funds for technology products and services. Moved by,
Ford.
Right.
second by,
Gums.
nobody wants to move it along. Gums? And then go ahead, Charles.
Yeah, so we currently have a resolution that authorized this joint purchase agreement with Sourcewell. That contract is coming to an end, and so they did a renewal. So this is just to renew that under the new terms. It allows us to use their Sourcewell pricing to purchase the services for our phone system. And we can do that through 2 of the resellers, TIG, who we currently do a lot of work with on the phone system, and Heartland Business Systems. So we would recommend approval. This is a budgeted expense.
Okay, any questions for Charles? Roll call, please.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Young,
Young, yes.
Juby,
Juby,
Caius.
Caius, yes. Item C, resolution. May I have a motion and a second to authorize the purchase of additional Laserfish licenses and a budget adjustment from the Riverboat Fund 390. Moved by Berman, second by Ford. Charles?
So this is a resolution to purchase additional licenses, which also requires us to move funds from our fund balance utilization. We've had funds budgeted in the past in the riverboat and projects have delayed some of that work. So we've had our fund balance utilization fund increase. This will be moving some of that money back out of there so we can expend it for this project. We currently are using Laserfish for many things throughout the county and there's additional needs to add more licenses. So this would allow us to do that.
It's Laserfish sounds old, isn't it? Isn't that the old,
That's micro.
Micro.
oh,
Micro.
microfish? Oh, okay. Excuse me.
Yeah, I think the naming is probably because it took that old technology and this is the digital form. So that's
Yeah.
probably why they went with that name, but yes.
Sure was fun though.
Yeah, right.
We would recommend approval and with this budget adjustment, there would be funds in that line to
Okay.
make that, to cover that expense.
All right. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Berman,
yes.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Young,
Young, yes.
Juby,
I.
Caius.
Guys, yes. I don't believe since Roger stepped out, there's nothing, anything from SSA, from our Mill Creek SSA. I think you're in charge now, I guess, for that. Then on to vehicles. And I'm guessing that's what we have. Go ahead and state your name, Bill, and
Bill Edwards with Transportation.
actually, let me make this resolution first. May I have a motion and second?
Gums will move.
For approving purchase of 8, make that 8 GMC and 4 Chevy 2022 and a half ton pickup trucks for the Kane County Division of Transportation.
Gums will move.
Gums moves, second by Ford. Okay, thank you, Bill. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is Transportation's looking to purchase these 12 vehicles we've been leasing. The lease program was approved by County Board back in October 2019. And up to this point, it's by far exceeded our expectations, but it's no longer working for us. The vendor isn't able to supply vehicles. So part of the program had the option for us to purchase. So Transportation is requesting your approval to purchase these vehicles. And we'll look at this program at a later time. And it's already been approved by Transportation Committee, so.
Okay. Any questions? So you guys taking really good
Release.
care of them while you've had them, right? So,
Yeah, they're only a year old. So.
yeah, so good deal. Was there something I heard online or?
Oh, yeah, David Young. I had a question. You had mentioned
Mr.
that there's.
Young?
Yes, David Young, can you hear me?
Yes, proceed.
Yeah, David Young, I had a question. You said that the vendor no longer can supply these services. Could you explain that a little bit? I guess you're releasing it from these vehicles from some company and they're no longer able to lease these to you or?
Correct. Yeah, our program was a 6-month cycle. That was the only program offered to be cost effective versus owning our own vehicles and maintaining them ourselves. So we did this and we would change out vehicles every 6 months and resell them. And our goal was to basically use vehicles for free with the government incentives and stuff. When they resold them to private sector, it would be about what we would pay for them for the 6 months that we owned them. It turned out that we made over our net benefit was over 500,000 during this program. So, but now they are no longer able to produce these or get these replacement vehicles. So we're paying interest on our vehicles and it's not cost effective anymore.
Does that
Thank
answer
you.
your question, Mr. Young?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, it was like when we first heard it, it was too good to be true, really. It's like,
Yeah.
really? And we did, we made a net benefit, like you said, but all good things, of course, come to an end.
Mhm.
Did you have your hand up, Henry, on this one? No? Oh, okay. Sorry. I thought I saw something. Okay. All right. Any questions? Any other questions?
What
for
has
Bill?
any more questions?
Then a roll call, please.
Berman,
yes.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Young,
Young, yes.
Juby,
GBI.
Caius.
Caius, yes. Item B is, may I have a motion and second, for, vehicle acquisition approval to replace a 2011 Ford Escape with a vehicle to be determined based on availability. Moved by
So move.
Gums, second by Berman. And, that Charles again?
Yeah, this is Charles with IT Department. There's not a resolution for this because we are hoping to keep the cost under $30,000. But we are bringing it for approval to the committee as required. We are looking at replacing a vehicle that was evaluated and it was determined to qualify under condition 4, needs immediate consideration. There's rust on the subframe and some other issues that we are told this vehicle should be replaced fairly soon. We had budgeted for a new vehicle. So we're looking to replace it with a similar vehicle. We were going to purchase a gas powered vehicle and keep the cost under 30,000. Recently, we were asked to look into a hybrid or another electric vehicle or something along those lines. So if that is something the committee would like us to do, we can do that. It will push the cost up. It looks like we can find vehicles that would meet those criteria at about $42,000 to $46,000 instead of this vehicle we're looking at is at 30,000. So we would like your recommendation on that. We were planning to proceed with this vehicle, but we can change directions if that's something you'd like us to do. We would need to do most likely an emergency purchase affidavit if we're going to go that route, because we did get pricing back for vehicles that met that through building management, and the costs were coming back at a lot higher than list price. So we don't want to pay those costs going through that bid. So we would like your recommendation on how to move forward with this vehicle.
I guess maybe we didn't need a motion and a second on this one since it's just a speech. Sorry about that. Got into the swing of things. Okay, so we'll just withdraw the motion since it didn't apply, if that's okay.
Yeah.
And Berman. So then from consensus from the committee is what you're looking for
Well,
to go ahead that way, or?
Mr. Chair Gums, I think a discussion about, I think they're asking for direction as to, do we want them to get an EV vehicle or,
So
I mean, okay, I'll
we're
start.
open for discussion. Yeah,
I'll start.
I say,
I've
got one.
I think, yes. I mean, that's the direction I think we're headed as EV vehicles.
As long as you don't take my charging spot up there.
Well, that is one thing to consider
Right.
because that would be, at this time, that would be the spot that we would need to charge.
You can charge it overnight.
So, yeah, or we need to consider installing additional chargers. That's the other thing that as we look at the cost, there would be an increased cost. These vehicles in IT are usually used for shorter trips, so you don't get the benefit, as much of a benefit from going with an EV since we're not putting as many miles on them. So to make up that difference in cost may be a challenge for us, but those are things that we are considering when we're looking at the price. So we would need to look at we probably need to look at installing additional chargers at this point on this campus anyway, but that has not been budgeted at this point. So
Where we're going.
Yeah.
Does, Ms. Juby, do you have a sort of a,
Yeah, normally I would like to say we should look at a hybrid, which I don't know if we can look at a hybrid that doesn't require us to have a charging station. I know that Honda has one that recharges itself as it's driving. But if that's off the table, then I don't think in our kind of tight money frame that we should be spending extra money on a vehicle that's going to cost us more money in addition to that. I mean, we're going to head into a meeting tonight to find out what our plans are on our buildings and how much they're going to cost. And, you know, that's a couple of years down the road. And maybe that's when this vehicle cycles itself out. Maybe that's when we would look to do, you know, a completely electric vehicle. However, I would like the option of knowing if there was a hybrid that wouldn't cost us. I don't mind paying a little bit more for it because it saves us, but I don't want to have to pay more for a vehicle and then have another issue, an unintended consequence that we have to deal with.
so, and I guess the question was it a PEV or just an EV, or you're looking for a recommendation? So it would be a hybrid with a plug-in or something along those lines?
So we were looking at the Ford Escape and theirs was a plug-in, I believe, they're hybrid from.
Plug-in
what I
hybrid,
saw.
yeah.
I would be, Gums here, I would be good with just, going for the cheaper option and
Hybrid.
get that done. No, I mean, if a regular old,
Ooh.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr.
Well,
Ford.
um,
Point taken.
first, do we know the difference in costs? And two, we have to look at the costs, extra cost versus the gas savings. So I don't know how much balance it out, how much.
Can you, is this an imperative thing? Can you bring figures back for us on that one or? You,
So I'm looking online at different prices of what's available in the area within a 40-mile range. The price difference was $30,000 for the gas, about 45, 46 is what I found for the plug-in hybrid. So looking at $16,000, 50% increase over the cost. And that doesn't include installing a charging station and those expenses. Looking at the miles we put on vehicles and IT, it's maybe 6,000 miles a year that we're driving vehicles because we're making shorter trips. We're driving to the JC, to the old courthouse, maybe to Aurora. So we don't put a lot of miles on them, but we make a lot of smaller trips.
Maybe you could have an e-bike. Because Chris loves e-bikes.
get an e-bike. Mr. Young, you have your hand up?
I do. Thank you, David Young. I think it should just stick with the gas vehicle, especially if it's only 6,000 miles a year. I don't see the savings. Thank you.
I think that's the majority right there.
Yep.
All right, thank you. We'll move forward with this.
Wait a minute.
Oh, excuse me. I didn't see your hand up, Mr. Berman.
I think it's more than savings. It's more than a dollar amount. I think we're really talking about what we as a county want to do in the future for our, and I think that everything we've talked about is taking advantage or not taking advantage, but going to the most environmental option. So I think that in this case, we should go that way.
And Mr.
Gotta
Ford?
do it sooner or later, yes.
So excuse me, I guess we win then. Electric win. 2 say cheap. 3 say electric or hybrid.
It's not fair to say cheap. I mean, I'm not looking at it because of an economic
Inexpensive.
cost. I'm looking at it because of the additional planning and expense that we're going to have an electric vehicle.
Would the
But anyway,
electric or plug-in hybrid that you're suggesting that we fit into our regime right now without any changes? We have plug-ins electric and we do have gas available.
Right now on this campus, we have 2 charging stations in front of Building B. So I was saying that would end up using one of those spots when it needs a charge. So there's the potential to do that. We can also look to see what other options there are with like the ones that are the hybrid that use the gasoline to then charge, depending on which direction you want us to look with that. But we are looking at the Ford Escape to replace the Ford Escape. So we are looking at those models. Originally, we were doing our best just to track down a vehicle in stock, which was the gas powered one. And then we have recently in the last few days found a few. We haven't done a lot of research in that because that wasn't the direction we were originally going, but we can do more looking for that. But we would like to get this vehicle replaced fairly soon. So if your direction is to go with a hybrid or EV vehicle, we can do that. And then again, we would just do the emergency purchase affidavit because of the cost being over the 30,000, then we'd come and ratify that with you at next committee meeting or after it was purchased.
Mr. Chair Gums.
Madam Gums?
How many miles are on this car now?
It's like, I think it's 70, 80, something like
2?
70.
I actually have the form here.
Hey, I got a 2007 with 56,000 miles on it. That's all I'm saying. And that matters to me.
68,000 miles are on this vehicle.
So would it be fair to say that it'll get us a little bit longer until we can get an EV or PEV?
So we were,
What's
I
the-
mean, we've included the report that came with the scoring, and it said all brakes need to be replaced, tires are dry rotted, need to replace exhaust, broken front subframe. Cost to do repairs, they estimate at $5,000. So
So
that's why it was being recommended for immediate consideration. We can, if you're asking if we could do without this for a little while, we could look at doing that. How much time would you like us to wait?
I don't know.
Okay.
That's a loaded question. The, Ms. Strathman, I see your hands up.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. If all the, I'm not on the committee, but I also drive a PEV, and my experience is that with the short trips, if you're only putting on 6,000 miles a year, the short trips would mostly be covered by the electrical part of the machine, of the car. It wouldn't go into the gas mode very often. So to me, it would make sense to do a plug-in electrical vehicle. Thank you for letting me add that.
Certainly. Yeah,
Fine with it. Go,
Okay.
go the electric.
Right.
I don't. It doesn't matter.
I see your point, but eventually we're gonna have to get that way too. Anyway, Henry, you had to,
If I may just add something to Charles's request here. The next item is my EPA for the vehicle that we bought, and I just wanted to kind of share that we did look for a hybrid for the Escape. Heidi looked, I think, 100 or 300 miles radius, and there wasn't one available. So sometimes the availability is the problem. So just hopefully that helps.
okay, and then Roger?
I don't want to drag this on too long,
I
but
don't want
one
you
of
to
the, one
either.
of the questions that we've had is, does the car need to be domestically manufactured? Can we buy foreign cars? Because you will find a lot more hybrid electric cars in different manufacturers. So if you're willing to look at other manufacturers, the county, and I don't know that it's written anywhere, but historically they've bought in Chevy, Ford, and now it's, I guess, what is it, Stellantis, Chrysler, Dodge. But those have been kind of the manufacturers that have been historic, and that's where we're struggling, in the hybrid market. If you want a domestically produced hybrid or electric car, you're going to have to get on a wait list. And it's not really conducive to the county's procurement code, because we have to bid a known commodity or a known product, get a price, and traditionally buy it from them. And now we're saying, well, with lead times and supply, you don't know. So if it shows up on a lot, you have to pretty much show up with a check in hand and buy it, or somebody else that wants the car will buy it. I don't know. I mean, I guess pre-order and wait 12 months might be the only option if we want to have a very specific make, manufacturer, model type of car. So we have to get, in front of the ordering process faster.
Thank you, said the Kia owner myself. I'm a Kia
Yeah,
owner,
I
so-
guess that's, I don't know that it's
That's
written
okay.
anywhere that you have to buy a Ford, Chevy, or,
I'm looking for insight from the committee. It's no.
Anybody wanna
problem
take
for
that
me,
one
but
on?
that's all right. That's all right. Nobody wants to jump in on that one. But I have no problem. Especially if it's an emergency, we're losing this car and if we want to go toward a hybrid or a plug-in hybrid, then
it just expands your options.
yeah, that will give us a car.
Chairman Caius? Excuse me,
Mr.
David
Mr. Young?
Toyota does, I know it's Japanese, but they have a lot of plants where they make the cars in the United States. I mean, like the Toyota Tundra truck is manufactured in Texas. So,
Camrys too.
yeah, I mean, we should look at that. Look at Toyota.
I'm getting a feeling that we go ahead and look us up some stuff and get it back here as fast as you can. I don't think that there's any restriction on the make and model of it, but
I agree.
what that does your service, but I'm leaning toward,
I would agree with that.
leaning toward at least a plug-in hybrid, if not a hybrid, or I'm not sure about
Confirm
totally
that it's
electric.
not written anywhere.
Is that a yes? We can
Yes.
look at
Yes.
other
Yes.
manufacturers. We're not concerned. I don't know if there is any.
And just for
Well, it's not stepping
clarification,
in the water there.
Just for clarification, when you say get it back to us as soon as you can, does that mean you want me to bring this back to committee or move forward with the purchase if I find something?
Well,
I'd move forward.
do we have to vote for it anyway?
Mm,
If it's an emergency purchase,
You'll
whenever you-
ratify it after
Whenever
the
you
fact.
find it, you bring it in, we can put it in the chain at command, wherever that's at,
Yeah,
to get
okay,
the most expedient, because you don't want to lose it. That's part of the problem is that
right, that is the
if
other
we wait
issue.
for the 6 weeks it takes us to get it through all the committee process, if we don't do it right today, it's going to be, 2 months before we actually.
Yeah, so what you'd see is similar to what's on the agenda is for the next item, you'll see that EPA to approve that after the fact. So,
Right.
okay, thank you so much.
Yes.
Does that agree with everybody on the committee?
Yes.
Okay. Great. Now this next one is a resolution, so we'll ask for a motion and a second to ratify an emergency purchase affidavit to purchase a 2023 Ford Escape Active for building management. Gums moves,
Sherman, second.
Ford seconds.
And this is Henry Thompson from Building Management again. This resolution is ratifying the purchase EPA for the 2003 Ford Focus. This was a replacement for a car, unfortunately, that was involved in an accident about a month ago. When we did receive it was a total loss with the insurance company. We did receive $6,300 for the vehicle that was at a loss. So we recommend your approval today.
Okay, and this doesn't have to be a hybrid because we already bought it, right?
It is already purchased, and when I discussed with Madam Chair, she was very adamant about getting a hybrid or electric, but I went to her a second time because I was not able to find one. So she signed off on the gas vehicle.
All right. So any questions? Roll call, please.
I just have a
Berman?
comment.
Just
Can
one
I
second.
just Make a comment.
The
really
hand comes
quickly?
up. Yes, Ms. Gums.
Juby.
I mean, Miss Juby, sorry.
All right.
Gums is over here.
So I normally have a problem with these, and I would like Henry to tell you how much money we're saving by doing this.
Okay, so we worked with purchasing, and purchasing did put out the bid for a number of vehicles that we would purchase throughout the year. And the lowest cost Ford Escape was bid at 38,000 from the one responder that we did receive back. And this vehicle was purchased at 31,000. So we thought it was fiscally more responsible for us to go the EPA route and save the $7,000.
7. Thank
The
you.
only reason why it's okay.
Thank you, Ms. Juby.
You're welcome.
Okay, now roll call, please.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Ford, Gums,
Gums, yes.
Young,
Young, yes.
Juby,
Juby, aye.
Caius.
Guys, yes. Motion passes. There any new business? Anything from the committee? No old business? May I have a motion and a second to place the reports on file?
Gums will move.
Moved by Gums, second by
Berman.
Berman. Roll call, please.
Berman,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Gums, yes.
Young,
Yes.
Juby,
Juby, aye.
Caius.
Guys, yes. I don't see any state's attorneys hanging around, so I don't think we need executive session. Certainly nothing from me. And finally, any public comment? There's none for off-topic items, non-agenda items. Then a motion to adjourn, please.
Motion adjourned.
Berman,
Second.
second by Gums.
Aye.